Motion to come back into session.
I make a motion that we come back in session.
Do I have a second?
A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to come back in session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Back in session. All right. All right, so where were we? Yep. All right, so yeah, we're at the board discussion. So we've closed the floor. Discussion on this case.
Due to the special circumstances here, I have no problem with the application as presented.
Given the testimony of what the applicant's attempting to do, the topography, what they would like to do with the structure for additional square footage and justifying the size of the building and the building request, I would be inclined to approve it as submitted and based on the testimony we've received.
I would be in concurrence with what you guys said. Mr. Riley?
Yes, I would be in concurrence too. Everything we've heard on testimony today does support approval of this variance.
All right. Given the discussion, anything else you need to say? If not, then we'll be looking for 3 different motions, potentially, assuming that we went to it. Maximum square feet, location variance, and the front yard setback variance. So I'd be willing to accept a motion.
I'd like to take a crack at this, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
That would be great.
Okay. Motion to approve docket 19021, maximum floor area for detached garage of 300 feet to accommodate boat, truck, and other material, and because it will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, it will not alter the character of the surrounding area, and it will not cause any hazard or nuisance to the public. Conditions of approval. Conditions of approval. This variance shall apply only to the application considered at the July 19, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Second, I'd like to make a motion to approve docket 19021 to allow placement of detached garage in front of primary structure due to the rear property drop-off.
Conditions?
Condition of approval, this variance shall only apply to the application considered at the July 19, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to approve I'd like to make a motion for docket number 19021 to approve a front yard setback of 20 feet.
30.
30 feet. Setback variance of 30 feet, front yard setback variance of 30 feet.
Because it won't,
The building is going to be 30 feet from the front property line, so the variance request is only 20 feet.
That's what I said.
Correct.
He moved it back.
he
He moved it back.
Right.
Correct, because originally it was going to be 20 feet from the front property line, requiring a 30-foot variance. So if he moves it 10 feet back, now he's only 30 feet from the front property line and a 20-foot variance.
Correct.
So he only needs a 20-foot variance, because he's going to be 30 feet from the front property line.
I thought the minimum front yard setback variance was 50 feet.
It's 50 feet. The
Right.
building's gonna be 30 feet from the front property line. So he
There we go.
only needs a 20-foot variance.
All right, now we're getting there. So it's 50 minus the 30. 50
you
is what
the
it should be,
20
so it's a
is-
20-foot variance.
Correct,
So Mr. Riley was correct.
correct.
Can I start over on that one?
If you withdraw your motion,
I'd like to withdraw my motion that I just made, which was correct first, and then it's not correct second.
all right, so now it's been withdrawn.
I've been withdrawn. Okay, here we go. I'd like to make a motion for docket 19021 to approve a front yard setback variance of 20 feet.
And then add, it will not adversely
Because?
affect.
Oh, yeah, and it will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. It will not alter the character of the surrounding area, and will not cause hazard or nuisance to the public. Conditions of approval. This variance shall only apply to the application considered at the July 19th, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
Did I miss when coming in, this other condition of the, wouldn't be used for any commercial purposes, was that on the initiative?
Yes.
I think it's part of your.
It was not nothing about, that was,
We've already passed it, that's why I say if I missed it coming in.
No, I didn't say it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if it was to be used for commercial purposes, we would do code enforcement. It's implied it's for non-commercial purposes. And that's what the testimony was as well.
Potential condition, that's the only reason I bring it up.
right.
Okay, how do we correct that?
Well,
You don't have to.
you don't have to.
Your
Okay,
motion's
okay,
fine
got
as
it.
it is.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. This case is now closed. Move 1 second. Okay. Ready to go forward with the next case,
Ready?
Mr. Riley?
Okay. Docket OC 19022, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for a preschool on property located at 8909 Highway 329, Crestwood.
All right. Your next documented item, as Mr. Riley stated, this is an application for requesting a conditional use permit for a preschool. Staff discussed what the use of this was going to be, so it was kind of a mix between a preschool and a child care center. It's really more of a preschool. So we are trying to, and I'll get to that in a second, where the Board of Adjustments has the ability to interpret that gray area. The property is zoned AG1 and CO1 and is approximately 2.74 acres. So this tract is in the center of a larger tract of land. So outlined in blue is Fox Hollow Farm. So here, this red area there, that is the tract of land in which the existing building is located. So this is a zoomed in version of that little red box, and then circled in blue is the building that will be used as the preschool center. It shows the existing zoning. This is the area that shows the existing structures and then the drive. This property has a lot of history. The entire tract of land has a lot of history. So in April of 1988, a conditional use permit for a conference center was approved by the Oldham County Board of Adjustments. And then 3 years later, they came back and renewed that existing conditional use permit because it had a time limit on it for 3 years and said that they had to come back and renew it after the first 3 years. So they came back in 1991 and renewed the conditional use permit for the conference center. Then in 1994, an application was presented to the Board of Adjustments for an additional conditional use permit for a wellness center. that was going to be on the property in conjunction with the conference center, and that was approved as well. Then in December of 94, they also were approved for a conditional use permit to have a manufactured home placed on the property that was to be used for the wellness center while the renovations to the manor house was underway. So they had a temporary structure that was placed on the property to use as the wellness center until the manor house was completed. Then in 1999, an application regarding for a placement of a sign came before the Board of Adjustments for the location of that, and that was actually denied. And then they came back with a revised plan in September of 2001 for a variance regarding the placement of that sign, and then it was approved. Then in 2006, there was a road frontage variance that was approved by the Oldham County Board of Adjustments for a tract of land. And then in November of 2010, a road frontage variance was approved as well. And those are the two smaller tracts that are located inside of the large farm tract. Those were the two road frontage variances that were granted. And then in March of 2013, an additional conditional use permit was approved by the Board of Adjustments for a farm store and cafe all on Fox Hollow Farm. So again, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a preschool out of an existing building located on the property. So again, this yellow tract and then the red tract there, those were the two tracts that were granted the road frontage variances back years ago in 2006 and 2010, I believe. But this existing building here in red, or the existing structure in tract in red, is approximately 1,500 feet from Highway 329. So this is Highway 329. So the distance from Highway 329 to that building is 1,500 feet. And it's 1,000 feet to the closest adjoining property line. So that just just to give you scale of the size of the tract of land and how far it is off the road. And then, like I said, it's kind of in the middle section of around 590 acres. So this is a zoomed in version. Again, this is the proposed location of the preschool. The preschool will be known as Bluebird Cottage School at Fox Hollow Farm, and it would be a nature and play-based learning center for children ages 3 to 6. The anticipated hours of operation would be from 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., Monday through Friday, with the possibility of adding afternoon programming in the future that would go to 6. Upon enrolling 8 students, an additional staff person will be required. This is all regulated by the state. The number of teachers and assistants to teacher to student ratio, I guess you would say. The maximum number of students would be a total of 18 for morning and afternoon classes to ensure a quality experience and low impact on the spaces being used. The facility also has existing parking areas and has a roundabout used for easy drop-off and pickup, and also has sidewalks that lead to the gated fenced outdoor play areas. So if you go and you look in our zoning ordinance, the definition for colleges and schools not for profit are listed as a permitted use in AG1 zoning. However, the definition for school is a site for instructional purposes on an elementary or secondary level with curriculum that complies with state regulations. It doesn't, our definition does not acknowledge pre-K. So it talks about elementary and secondary levels. So it doesn't, we couldn't shoehorn it into colleges and schools. And then it's not really a daycare facility either, because it's an active preschool. So these are the regulations that talk about daycares. So daycare facilities of 4 or more children is listed as a conditional use, and they have the following standards. So the visual compatibility with surrounding neighborhood and land uses, hours of operation of 6A to 6P. Outdoor recreation area shall be fenced and screened on all sides. 7 to 12 children requires a conditional use permit by the appropriate Board of Adjustments and Type 2 license from the state. And 13 or more children requires a zoning change and to be approved by the Planning Commission and legislative body, as well as a Type 1 license from the state. So if it was treated more of a daycare facility, these would be the parameters that would have to be followed. Section 350.040, powers of the Board of Adjustment, item 4 states, uses not specifically permitted in zoning districts, the Board of Zoning Adjustments shall have the power to determine which uses are the same general character as uses specifically permitted in zoning districts, and thus allow uses in zoning districts which, although not specifically permitted, will not be out of character with other uses. So this is the entrance into Fox Hollow off of Highway 329. This is across the street. So this is, and they also own this property as well across the street. This is the west view on Highway 329. This is the east view. So this is going back into Brownsboro or Crestwood area. This is the proposed preschool building. This is just another side view. These, it's kind of hard to see, but these are all parking spaces here as well. So the area that the picture I just saw, that was this car sitting here. But they do have other parking noted on there as well. This is the Circle Drive, so this is where they were speaking of, where people would come in and either park or come in and drop children off, at, as a roundabout to drop off for preschool. This is the driveway if you took the other part of the roundabout and for the other farm uses that are on the property. This is the fenced area, so on the other side of this fence will be the proposed play area for the children. This is a rough draft of like a floor plan that would be used for inside of the proposed preschool. So you'll see it has, a circle rug for gathering, a literacy corner, dress-up area, things of that nature. And this was the sign that identifies all the different uses and buildings located on Fox Hollow Farm. So the building is right here. It's the purple one right there. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what overall is on the farm there at Fox Hollow and all the different uses. So, in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a preschool. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And if you have more detailed questions about the business plan for the preschool, please direct those to the applicant. I can attempt to answer any technical questions.
So when we talk about issuing a conditional use permit, again, it's for a preschool / child care center. So we would have to define what would be put in there, which you've called preschool / child care, or just, I'm trying to figure, because you
My
showed,
interpretation is that it's more of a preschool because of the age of the children that are going there and the time frame that they are going.
okay,
A typical child care center provides all-day service from 6A to 6P. And I would get clarification because this is structured learning center rather than a typical child care center that takes, 6-week-old babies up to school-aged children and after-school programs as well.
yeah, so they've just limited instead of, like you said, babies and stuff, they've just limited the
just
the
preschool
ages
age.
to be narrower than a
Yes.
broader. But if we use the broader child care center, that 6A to 6P would cover it then?
No.
No?
Those are just the regulations for hours of operations for a child care center. It's a preschool is what it is. But we don't have a definition for a preschool. So to be able to relate it to something that is allowed as a conditional use in this zoning classification, the closest thing I could come to was a child care center. So the applicant is asking for permission to have a preschool there, but you're relating it, the closest relationship that we could get to was a child care center or a college or school,
Right.
not for profit. So that's the gray area. We don't have a definition of preschool and where those are allowed.
So if we call it a preschool in our let's say, again, I'm jumping ahead to try
Sure.
to understand what we've got to qualify as we move along. But if we in our motion called it a preschool, then we'd have no definitions to refer back to because of what you just said.
It would be based off the evidence and testimony that they stated in their application and at the hearing.
Okay?
So
But
you
what
could
if-
put their hours of operation, you could limit their number of students.
We could, or another way is, and this is, so you're heading exactly down the road I'm trying to go down. We could call it a preschool with no definitions in our standards, and then define them in our motion and divide them as our uses, and here's the things you have to live with under.
Correct.
Or if we called it a child care center, then there's already definitions to live within that are broader, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., correct? And then we wouldn't have to define all those pieces? Is that a second way to go?
I don't think that's a second way to go because the use of the property is not a child care center.
I just want to remind you, Amy showed you a slide that the state statute says you have the authority to interpret the black and white of the regulation.
Correct.
That's what you're doing. Don't confuse it by something other than, this is a preschool.
Correct.
Straightforward, that's her application for preschool. You'll have testimony on her teaching children, which is different than a daycare. It's not a daycare. So use this 350-040, and it's part of what's also in the KRS 100. You can specifically permit uses that are not spelled out in our regulations.
I understand what you just said. I believe I understood what you just said. So my question then is, if we called it a child care center, would this not be a subset of the broader definition of child care?
No.
And if
No.
not, why not?
Well, I'm going to see, and check me on this. There are certifications that have to be signed through the state, things that we don't have any,
Correct.
but they ask us to sign for certain things. Barbershops, car dealerships, daycares. So we don't want to sign it as a daycare.
Because that was subject to different regulations that
Correct.
otherwise it would not be subject to as preschool.
That's
That's the
correct.
clarification I'm
Yes.
looking for.
And the number of students, it requires a zoning change
Right.
if it's considered a daycare. Because,
You Get up
is
to your
your mic
microphone.
on?
Qualifications, we have, our public school system has a basically preschool, kindergarten, and is there an age limit with this? These are children that are not eligible for first grade or something?
Ask the applicant that question. That You're getting into a range here that's not our expertise.
Oldham County does not have a public preschool. The preschool that's located there are people
know.
that have special needs or learning disabilities or things that need extra help
Right.
for preschool.
Right.
There is kindergarten.
I think if you hear testimony, this will start to clear up your questions.
Yep, the use of the property.
All right, I was just trying to figure out
Yeah.
what road we're
Yeah.
trying to
It's
get in.
more, it's a preschool, but had to equate it to something to get it docketed what it was similar to.
Okay. Any other questions of Amy? All right, thank you, Amy. The applicant could come forward, I would appreciate it.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address.
Mary Beth Legler, 2444 Tyler Lane, Louisville, Kentucky 40205.
All right, Mary Beth, if you could explain to us what you're trying to accomplish and create the clarity that we're looking for.
Yes. So I am seeking to open a preschool for children ages 3 to 6 years old on Fox Hollow Farm. I've been a early childhood teacher for 20 years, and the co-owner of Fox Hollow Farm has always wanted a preschool on her land that's been part of her long-term vision for her property. So when I came to her with this idea, she was very supportive, and she wrote a letter of support, which I shared with Miss Alvey, and I believe is in your staff files. Yeah. So my hope is that I will have 12 children. I want to have a small class because I think that's what most parents want for their children, and I think it's better for the children to be in a small group. And yeah, I'm seeking a conditional use permit. The building does not require construction. It does require some modifications to be in compliance with Kentucky licensing regulations, but there's no construction necessary. And as Amy pointed out, it's in a really tucked in, safe area on the farm, which is one of the reasons that location is so appealing to me.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say before we start asking questions? All right, questions of the board?
What will your hours of operation be?
So the morning program will be from 8:30 to 1 p.m. And Mr. Urban advised me that it's best to, on the front of things, create some openness about extending into the future. So for the first year, certainly, I think it would be from 8:30 to 1, but I wanted to have the possibility of having an afternoon program for families that need longer care for the future. So there's a possibility that a year from now, there would be an afternoon program that would conclude by 6 p.m. for the families who need full-day childcare.
So if we had this condition, it would be from 8 to 6. That would satisfy your requirement?
Yes, sir.
What will be your days of operation?
Currently, I'm thinking Monday through Friday.
Do you see or anticipate expanding into the weekends?
No, sir.
Would there be any impact on any other surrounding area, given what's, again, I'm trying to put into the record? Is there any impact on the neighbors or anybody by operating this?
No, I think there's enough space. The farm is 1,300 acres total. So there's a forest, nature preserve section that we have permission from the farm owner to use, but there's so much space between that and neighboring property owners. I doubt they would hear us or see us. And one of the benefits of a small group is there won't be an increase in traffic. I don't anticipate an increase of traffic on 329.
Okay.
What will be the maximum number of children per day?
Well, the fire marshal inspection told me I could have 23 children. That is not what I want. I think my maximum would be 16, with 12 being my goal. But if it depends on the children, if it's a group that we can take some more, we could take some more. But as Amy pointed out, if once you have more than 13, you have to change your zoning classification. So 13 currently is my maximum.
One of the things we don't like to do is make people come back to us
Yeah.
because they didn't anticipate something. So one of the questions I have for you is, what about, you talked about an afternoon programming. So could there be that there's 13 there for your preschool program, and then you bring in people for the afternoon, and there's an
Yes.
overlap time?
Yes.
So then you'd be more than 13. So what I don't want to do is set some sort of limit at 13 if we were to approve this, and then find out that oh my gosh, there were 21 on site for a 15-minute period, and then you're technically in violation. So what we want to do is, if we were to approve, set limits that take into account somebody wanted to drop their kid off early. So if you said 8:30 is when we start, but someone drops somebody off at 8 o'clock because they've got an appointment or something, we don't want to set the hours too limited. So as you consider your answers to us about time, number of kids, those kind of things, take into account your worst-case scenario so that you're not in violation of anything that we might approve.
So did you want to change your number from 13?
Not currently.
Okay.
Other questions of the applicant?
At this moment, you were discussing a morning program, you're saying, with the opportunity to expand into an afternoon. And I think I might be pigtailing on what Rob said a moment ago. Would it be within reason that if you had a morning, are they going to be two separate classes in its entirety, or could a morning child carry over to the afternoon?
Yes, so a morning child could carry over into the afternoon. Most people, I think, with that age of child want them to go home and take a rest. But there are other people that, I imagine the afternoon program would be smaller. But yes, people could have an extended day if they want, but that would also be a separate program. I'm envisioning for like an after-school program for children that are going to public school but then need some time to play outside at the end of their day, something like that. So what I'm picturing is that the children who are in my morning program, if they wanted to extend their day, we would have a rest time, a snack, and then maybe at 3 o'clock there would be some sort of after-school program for a few, staying within compliance and staying within under 13. Children could come for a little enrichment time after school.
Did I hear something about age requirements mentioned? I felt like I thought I heard something regarding ages. And are you capping that based on these ages, based on your instructional plan? Or
So yeah, the license that I'm applying for a type 1 license from the state, and to be within ratio, I'm not taking children under the age of 3 because the ratio, teacher to student ratios are a lot more rigid, and I think it's 10 to 1 with the age group I have now, but when you start to dip into the toddler ages, it gets to be like 4 to 1. So, but for the after school program, I'm envisioning could be like children that are in kindergarten and at public school and then come to the farm for a little playtime. But no children under the age of 3.
is this, is the possibility there where schools would be doing bus drop-offs at that location, or not based on your pupil count for an afternoon program?
I don't think
You don't
so.
anticipate the school system running buses or anything out to
No.
you?
Additional questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the application? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, if we don't have anybody speaking for or against, then there was no need for a rebuttal. We can move straight to final statements. Would you like to make any final statement? Okay. Board members, any questions of the applicant or of staff before we close the floor? All right, we'll now close the floor and have discussion amongst the members.
I think it's a viable concept, and I think it'll be a need in the community. I am in favor of the way it's been proposed.
Let me interject one thing here before you go further. I'm a little concerned about what we're going to define this as, and I understand you put up section 350.040, which basically is saying this board can do anything it wants to do. I don't really think that's the case, but you might as well not have this other stuff going and just go by this one statute and let them do what they want to do. But school, under the definition, and also for not-for-profit school, as opposed to for-profit school, and I imagine this is a profit school. And it's a situation where it takes place for kids that are getting out of school, coming to stay probably for daycare. So I don't know, you've got to put a label on this, and I don't care what you do with it, but it's not fitting in the pattern here. And her definition of 13 to 16 to more kids, that's going to be a zoning change, maybe if it's a daycare situation. So if you want to fit this in the peg, right now it's got a square hole that you all need to straighten out.
Well, and again, that's why we put this up, because it's the board's job and authority to interpret the gray matter. All we're doing is giving you what's in our regulations, and you determine if it's similar. And we've done this before, not with as many board members, but certainly.
I'm not opposed to what
Right.
it is. I'm very familiar with Fox Hollow and what goes on out there. I've been dealing with them for many years, and I want the board to support it, but we have to find a way to put it in here that's going to be viable and not be.
Well, that's why we keep insisting that this is an application for a preschool. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to go, without opening the floor, I'm going to ask the applicant a question, which I think may help sort out.
Okay? While Jim's doing that, I guess, Tate, that's part of why I was asking those questions earlier, because I'm trying to figure out what we're labeling it as, what box we can fit it in, what box we can't fit it in, and so that clarity of, what we're even making a motion for. We're making a motion to approve what?
That's right.
Yeah, and so,
That's where staff's going to have to come in and help, we've got to put some kind of a label on it,
right.
and how it fits in within. Otherwise, we can just do whatever we want to do.
Yeah, so that's why I was trying to see if we could do it with the childcare, and then if they narrowly to the state apply for something where they don't do under the age of 3, well, that's fine. That's up to them.
It's up to the state to do whatever the regulation is, but they have to have some kind of a label or a business program that complies with not only state regulation, we can't override that.
Correct.
For licensure and how you provide for basically children.
Right.
After school, before school, and some age level. I mean, are we going to be putting seniors in high school here just for, I mean, that's facetious, but
Right.
I would expect 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids maybe.
Well, and that's where I was struggling here, because you, Mr. Funk, you asked about the ages, and then when I start thinking after-school programs, well, after-school programs, that would be higher than the age of 6. And then when we talk about not dropping off from schools, I'm like,
You
well,
don't
then
want to
how
call
are
it
they getting there?
preschool. I mean, I don't know.
I'm struggling with this. All right,
So I don't know if this is going to help, but
well, it'll at least give us more information.
she misspoke about something. She said it was a type 1 license. What it actually is type 2 license, and that is from the Cabinet of Health and Family Services Division of Child Care. So if you were to consider this conditional use permit, I think if you said that it was for a preschool that was going to be licensed by the state, the Cabinet of Health and Family Services, Division of Child Care, under a Type 2 license, that may be very clear as to what it is you're approving.
Okay?
Now, the distinction between the type 2 and type 1 is, type 1 is for over 13. And she's saying, I don't want to go over 13. She gave you testimony that says she only wants to go up to the type 2, because then the type 1 requires a change in zoning. So that's why I
Did she
think,
mention 16 kids or something at one point?
she said, she mentioned 16, but then she settled. If you wanted to call her back up, you can clarify. What I heard was she said, I don't want to go to where I have to go for a zoning change, and that's 13 or more according to our regulations, right? 13 or more. So, and that's, so you're really limiting it to 12, because she said, I don't want to go for a zoning change. Yes.
You know,
And this is in our
13 or
zoning
more is a
ordinance.
type 1 license, that requires a zoning change.
That's correct. So it's type 2, up to 12, and this is in our zoning regulations that says, but again, she was clear that it's a type 2 license from the Cabinet of Health and Family Services Division of Child Care for the type of operation she wants to have on this property.
Okay, so maybe I'm the only one that doesn't get this. So if this is under 260-140 daycare facility, and we're going for section 4, type 2 license, 7 to no more than 12, is that not under your authority to approve without having to have this? Because that's already defined in the regulations, and I'm asking whether or not we really need to have us approve anything.
It says right there on the screen, permitted with a conditional use permit. 7 to 12,
Right there.
right there.
Ah, absolutely.
So that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
What she's really wanting to do is a preschool, and it does go to that type 2 license.
So why can't we just call it a daycare facility under section
Okay.
4?
I want to be clear that that's not what she's really trying to get here, though.
I understand that's that, but what I don't understand is, and maybe, again, maybe it's just me, but it sounds like to me by, under this 26-140, if we approve it as that, she's saying, I'm only going to apply for ages 3 to 6. And that's a subset of the broader approval. So if we approved it on a broader basis, am I saying this wrong? Or can we just approve it on the broader basis and just say we're approving under 2260-140, type 2 license, number of children aged 7 to 12, and approve it under that statute? And then she wants to
That's
subset it?
fine with me. I mean, I don't think you go, as long as she's complying with a type 2 license from the state
Okay,
to run her
She can limit
program,
herself
that's
more.
fine, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean,
She can limit herself more than what we would approve then, is what
Okay.
she'd be doing. Okay. That seems like a reasonable, again.
All right, now you're back. I'm finished. You- Y'all are
Okay.
back in your discussions.
Anything else, Jim?
well, if you're inclined to approve this, you are going to start thinking about conditions of approval. One is the plan that was submitted today. One is a maximum of 12 students, so it fits within this type 2. The hours of operation, as I heard them, were 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Correct.
And then I would add one, rather than trying to sort out the age group, that she remain in compliance with the type 2 license as issued by the Cabinet of Health and Family Services.
Absolutely. I think
And then
that's
that way,
fine.
we don't have to deal with whether or not there's an issue with that licensing, because that's not what we enforce anyway.
Okay, so if anybody's willing to make a motion on this, my inclination is the hours can you leave that up there, please? The hours of operation as defined on there is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'm fine with leaving that alone and not trying to limit it more.
Monday through Friday.
Yeah, and, well, the Monday through Friday is another question, because to me, the more we just leave it under this regulation as it stands, we just approve it as there, the only limitation would be that stay in compliance with the type 2 license with a maximum number of 12. If we do that, then we just leave the rest of it alone, is my opinion.
You certainly can, but you heard testimony she was not going to be on.
She wants to limit it more, that's her choice.
She offered that to you.
I understand, but to me,
Right.
that doesn't help me approve it or not approve it. It's my opinion.
What was your wording about the license?
Stay compliant with the type 2 license from
Got
the
it.
state as listed in their section 4 of section 260-140. In other words, what you see on the screen.
Highlighted in yellow.
Section 260-140, section 4, no more than 12 students.
Yeah, it's in your form here. On your notes, number 8.
Got it. Number 8, okay.
It's like, what's listed here is recreation area should be fenced and screened. That's part of their regulations that the state covers. So I don't think we need to have that as a condition because that's already covered by another entity. I think it's the two things that Jim said. Compliant with type 2, the maximum number of 12. Any other discussion? All right. No further discussion. Be willing to accept a motion?
Motion to approve docket OC 19-022, requesting a conditional use permit to operate a child care center out of an existing building located on the property, period. The building lies in the middle of approximately 590 acres on its own 2.5-acre tract, period. Justification for approval of this application is as follows. It is not in conflict with the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan. The setting for this application is in character with the surrounding area. The owner of the farm is in complete agreement with this application. It will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Conditions of approval. The conditional use permit shall apply only apply to the application considered at the July 19, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. Hours of operation will be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Days of operation will be Monday through Friday. Maximum number of children per day will be 12. Must comply with Type 2, State of Kentucky Cabinet of Health and Family Services, Type 2 license.
It's all right, unless you want to go, no, like 66.
I'd like to, my opinion is that we eliminate the hours that were suggested in your motion.
Eliminate the hours?
Yeah, and just let it go under the regulation of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Other opinions?
I said, hours of operation will be from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah, so I would eliminate that as one of your conditions, because the
Okay.
regulations already say 6 a.m.
I
to
got
6.
you, okay, I got you, okay. So how do I handle that?
Well, that's gonna be an amendment on your part, right?
Right. I would make a motion to amend the motion to eliminate the hours of operation.
I'll second it.
You have a
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion's amended. Any other issues on the motion? If not, accept a second
On the original motion.
on the motion as amended. We have a second? Tom seconds it. All in favor of approving the motion as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. One second.
Okay.
Mr. Riley?
Docket OC 19-023, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for a home occupation, sawmill/woodworking shop on property located at 1906 Creekview Court, Crestwood.
Come back, hold on. All right. Your last case of the day, as Mr. Riley stated, is a conditional use permit for a home occupation for property located at 1906 Creekview Court in Crestwood. The property is approximately 5.5 acres and is zoned AG1 and CO1. And they're asking for a home occupation for a sawmill and woodworking shop. This is an aerial view. You'll see the property and the subject property outlined in red. This is the zoning. So it is split zoning. So the lighter green is AG1 and the brighter green is CO1 conservation. The property, the rear of the property is encompassed by the 100-year floodplain. So the blue area here is all the 100-year floodplain. There have been no previous site history or actions before the Oldham County Board of Adjustments. So this property has not been before you guys with any previous cases. So again, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a sawmill woodworking shop on the property at 1906 Creekview Court. The applicant did apply for a building permit, so the home occupation would occur in the 40 by 60 barn currently under construction, and this was a barn permit that was issued on July the 2nd of 2019, and that barn will be located behind the home in the paddock area. These were the renderings of the barn. It'll be built similar to appear like this. It will have this lean-to here will also be on this side as well. So it'll have a lean-to on each side of the barn. The barn would be approximately 53 feet from the right property line, 102 feet from the left property line, and 500 feet from the rear property line. And again, the back of the property is located in the 100-year floodplain. So this is the site plan that was submitted with the building permit application that has the setbacks on it. And then I imposed the floodplain on here so you could get an idea of where it lies on there in the location to the building. The applicant, again, he's applying for a home occupation permit in the event customers come to the property to pick up products made in the woodworking shop or sawmill. So this is a view looking from the street into the applicant's property. This is just a zoomed in version of the applicant's property, of their home. This is the existing sawmill that was located in the side yard, the milling machine there. And I believe it has been relocated, but you can clarify that with the applicant off-site. This is the paddock area, and there's 3 different paddocks. There's one here, and then the rear one that is majority is located in that floodplain. So the building will be located in this area there. This is the north view, so standing in the applicant's driveway looking across the street. This is the view. This is the east view. So this is standing in the driveway looking, and this would be the left view, and the left adjoining property owner. This is the side yard between the left adjoining property and the applicant. This is the west view, and this does go into a cul-de-sac there. And this is the west adjoining property owner. According to the applicant's justification statement, the home occupation would contribute to his family's income, encourage the use of natural resources for art and design for the community to enjoy. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a home occupation for a sawmill / woodworking shop. You did receive in your email links that there were 2 letters of opposition. One of those was retracted, so you should have received that email as well. And then there was 1 letter of support that was in your packets as well. Or in your email, sorry. It was in your email. They came while I was on vacation. So, I'll be happy to answer, and you have those, Mr. Betterton, has, provided some information as well, so Jim will pass those out when he comes up. So we're happy
Make that
to,
last comment.
when the applicant comes forward, we'll give you the information that he's given to staff for you
Okay.
guys as an exhibit. And that is all that I have.
Questions for
Trying to get into the area.
you? The applicant can come forward.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address.
Joseph Betterton, 1906 Creekview Court, Crestwood, Kentucky, 40014.
All right, Joseph, if you could tell us a little bit about your project, what you're trying to accomplish, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I purchased a sawmill several months ago in hopes of using some of the lumber for my barn and also use it to do my hobby / side job. I'm a firefighter full-time, and most firefighters have a schedule where they have a job on their off days. So mine is cutting wood and woodworking. So I was under the impression that I was allowed to have a sawmill because we're zoned agriculturally, and that was why I never did this before now, because I didn't think I had to get approval for it. I guess because I thought, most farms cut hay and do stuff like that, and so I thought it wasn't a big deal for me to cut the wood and sell it, and just like people cut hay. But so then Dale with code enforcement came out, which I had known him from previous interactions with him based on my neighbor who had some objections. He informed me that if I was milling the logs off of my own property, I was well within my rights, but since under the Kentucky right to farm law, but since I was bringing logs in from the outside, that was where there was an issue with me selling the wood, because it basically was a commercial operation to some degree, even though it's a small business that I don't want it to become a big commercial operation. I just want to keep it small. And so now I have moved the sawmill off of my property. I did that last week. I began renting out a commercially zoned storage unit and a little concrete pad next to this unit where the sawmill is located now. My hope in applying for this is to be able to conduct my business out of the barn that we're building, that we've kind of held off on till we get through this part. We've already ordered the trusses for the barn, and I've submitted those to planning with the building permit and all that. And my brother-in-law works at K&I, so we will be using all treated lumber for the actual barn. Some of the finish work on the inside will be like the horse stalls, because we have 3 horses. We'll be using one side of the barn for horse stalls and the other side for woodworking. Trying to think. We'll have a dust collection system that we will use regularly to collect the dust. And I have on my business plan, I have options for how to get rid of the sawdust from it. this thing here was, I didn't even see that. This is from the neighbors that weren't able to make it today. They signed an agreement that they approve of my business, provided that I operate within the boundaries of whatever is decided today. And I also have most of my neighbors here now, that the ones that could make it, they are all here now. And then here's my business plan. Feel free to ask any questions on that.
I'm taking a second to read it because we were just handed it when he started his testimony, so if you could stay.
Yes, sir.
and read this, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it. Questions for the applicant?
I have a couple. Do you have one source that you're getting your material from that will be doing deliveries, or you have multiple sources?
Right now, I've only had one source that brings logs to me, and that is Jim Blair with All-in-One Tree Service. Now, most of his logs go to the dump to get burned. So the whole reason I started this is I cut down some trees on my property, and I hated to see the wood go to waste. So I got in contact with Jim, and there's a couple other tree guys that I talked to. Jim has been the only one that's brought stuff, and I'll probably keep it that way since he operates in Crestwood mostly, and he's very careful in how he does things. And his truck is actually, it's a medium-sized truck that's made to get in residential areas, and he's very mindful of kids playing in the street, and he's just a very thoughtful person. The other thing that for that question is I also have a trailer that I'll go pick up from certain tree guys, and they'll just load it on my trailer, usually 2 or 3 logs at a time, not very many. And that's the same with Jim. He only brings me, now he did bring me 10 logs one time, and I didn't know he was bringing that many. And what I ended up doing was giving some of the logs to another guy that has a sawmill. And that was where some of the issue with one of the objections was, where he dropped a log and it rolled in our neighbor's yard, and he had to go down with his skid steer and get it out. But I don't foresee anything like that happening in the future, because if Jim is aware of the whole situation, and I told him now I'm got to be very selective in the amount that he brings me, and that it can't be more than I can handle in a reasonable amount of time.
So
with
if
my
I may
space.
follow up on that question, then your property will be sized with the ingress and egress to get the trucks off the road for the log delivery, and then they can exit your property without obstructing the traffic out on the main road or your neighborhood road, and that it's not going to affect your neighbor's property by bringing larger vehicles and a pickup truck in and out. Is that your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So initially, you mentioned that there was a neighbor who objected, and then
Yes, sir.
and then issued another letter saying that they don't object anymore, correct?
Yes, sir.
What was the nature of the objection to begin with?
The objection was with parking.
Okay.
There was one time where, I'm not sure if it was, my wife, we have friends who come over to ride horses. So that specific time, the driveway there were several people there, and the driveway somebody may have parked on the edge of their property, and that was the objection, was with parking. So that neighbor came over and we talked it over, and I told him, you know, that I was gonna set a limit to one customer at a time. That way there wouldn't be a large amount of traffic impact, and that way the parking wouldn't get congested. And we are actually planning on putting some gravel down next to our driveway for, like, if our friends are there riding horses, for them to park. That way the driveway is clear for people to go in and out.
Okay. On your sheet that you had given to us,
Sure.
and on the third line down, Saturday, 12 a.m. to 5 p.m., do you mean 12 p.m. to 5 p.m.? Because you're saying someone could
Yes.
come at 1 in the morning.
Yes, sir. I put that day because most people work, you know, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and that way it would allow them an option to come pick it up that day versus, you know, normal work hours for somebody.
Okay.
And also there would be no milling on that day. It would just be weekdays. And with my schedule, like I work 24 hours every third day. So like usually I work my regular shift at the firehouse, and then I'll come home, or now I'm going to the storage unit, milling for a few hours, and then coming home around 2. And then the other day I have off, I usually take a break just because of my crazy schedule. So it wouldn't be every weekday that I'd be doing this. It'd be like possibly 2 weekdays a week, 2 to 3. But it would vary each week with my schedule because I work every third day. So some week I work tomorrow, Saturday, I'm off Sunday, Monday, I work Tuesday. So every week is gonna vary on the days.
Will you have employees?
No, sir.
So you wouldn't be opposed to a condition of approval, if we got to that, would be that you have no employees working in the business.
Yes, sir.
One of the things you mentioned is the number of logs got unruly or out of line. What would be the maximum number of logs that we could place as a limitation that you could have on site?
Usually, I mean,
I'm looking for a maximum number, not a
Yes, sir.
usual number, a maximum.
well, I'm thinking of like one tree is normally 5 to 7 logs maximum.
Okay?
If it's, you know, if it's a big tree, that would be the limit, I would think.
Okay, but you may have logs from the prior delivery, so you don't run out. You may want to have
Yeah.
it more than 7 though, right? Because you don't want to be down to 0
Yes, sir.
and then get logs. So
Yes, sir.
what would be a good number? 12? I'm looking for a maximum.
I think 10 would be plenty.
Okay?
And I would be able to keep them, I would be able to move them to, you know, out of sight from the roadway near the barn, under the lean-to or inside the barn, somewhere out of sight from the roadway. And I'll have equipment to do that. I mean, I have a tractor, but I'm planning on getting a Bobcat to do that.
Based on what I'm hearing you say, though, you really have no intention of warehousing logs on your acreage tract so much as moving them through, processing them, and then turning them back out in relatively short order. Do I
Yes, sir.
understand your business correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
And I usually, if I get, like I told Jim, I was like, I got too much right now. Hold off on bringing me anything because I got to get this cleared out. Jim is aware of that, and then it's on me, like how much I go get myself. So usually if I get backed up like that, I try to get done with what I got, and I don't like to have a large amount there.
So warehousing's not so much of an issue, or your land's not going to start to just become jam full of logs from what I'm hearing you say?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Are you going to have any signage?
No, sir.
What about additional lighting?
I mean, we'll have electric on the barn with just probably a light in the front, but not anything.
Nothing unusual that you
No,
wouldn't
sir.
see in a regular neighborhood?
No, sir.
Explain to us exactly what you are going to do in this barn. I mean, what is the,
The purpose.
well, what are you going to do? You said you had a sawmill,
Yes, sir.
but it's off premise. It's not on the premises. Is that correct?
It's not on the premises right now, sir.
Right now. Is it going to come later?
Well, hopefully, once we get the barn built, I would be able to put that inside the barn on the opposite side of the horse area.
Okay. Explain to me what a sawmill does.
Well, you load the log onto it, and it's a bandsaw, so it's got a blade that spins around like this, and it cuts a flat board from the log, and the log is secured to the metal base of the sawmill, and then the bandsaw just goes through and cuts it flat
Into slabs.
into slabs. Yes, sir.
So you,
And I can cut like regular lumber, like what this is made out of right here, or I can cut I can cut live edge, which is mainly what I do, where you leave the natural edge of the wood on the with the bark on it.
so you can chop down a tree, to be real simple about this.
Yes, sir.
You can chop down a tree, take the tree, put it in the sawmill, and it cuts off the bark, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what a sawmill does?
It cuts it into usable lumber for dining tables, bar tops, shelves. I can cut beams for people, to make structural pieces of lumber. Pretty much anything that up to a 3-foot wide piece is what I can cut with that sawmill.
And how big is this sawmill?
It's about, it can cut a 16-foot long log, and I also have an extension that would allow it to do 20 feet, but I don't normally do 20 feet.
Here's a picture of it.
The engine and the I keep the engine covered from the rain while it's outside, but the engine is under that tarp, and then there's safety covers on both sides in case the blade comes off. It's a very safe sawmill. It has it's not a homemade one, it's made by a commercial company. So it has protection in case the blade breaks or.
I'm asking these questions for a reason.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned engine. What kind of engine?
It's a 23 horsepower engine. It's the same as what would be on a lawnmower.
Diesel, gasoline?
Gasoline.
Gasoline. The reason I'm asking these questions is because of decibels. I'm concerned about noise,
Yes, sir.
because you're in the neighborhood.
Yes,
That's
sir.
why I'm asking these questions.
And that was the original reason why we were going to put it inside the barn, is so that it would reduce the amount of noise. And I will have fans obviously blowing, since it's gasoline. I would have fans blowing to,
Move exhaust.
yes,
Based on what I'm hearing you say, this engine's going to be no louder than a standard riding lawnmower or any piece of farm equipment such as a tractor and things of that nature. It's going to
Yes, sir.
it's going to be kind of in keeping with like a zero-turn mower as an example.
yes, sir. It's the same. It's a Honda motor, so it's comparable to that.
Okay, thank you.
How many hours a day would you run that sawmill when you're running it?
The maximum would be 4 to 5 hours. Honestly, after I've worked that long, I'm pretty beat from moving it wears you out, to do any more than that. I just put 9 to 5 so that I would have some flexibility in time. And usually my neighbor, goes on his walk, and I would try to, wrap it up when he's doing that. but it would be away from the roadway where he'd be walking anyways. So as far as the noise goes, it wouldn't, it's just like a tractor or lawnmower running.
And my last question for you is, if you're gonna cut a log, and let's say you slab the whole thing, you're gonna put this odd piece at the top, odd piece at the bottom, that it's gonna be hard for you to use. And you're going to be
slats.
stacking that up for months, because there's not open burn season in Oldham County all through the late, late spring to early fall.
Yeah, October, yeah.
Okay, so at that point, you're gonna be stacking up lots of this.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a plan, and how big could that process be, and how much burning could you do? Because what we obviously don't want to create is a lot of smoke and fog and smog
sir.
in the area.
Yes, sir.
So what's your plan about resolving that? Because it's 6 months, you're gonna have, approximately 6 months, you're gonna have no ability to burn anything.
Yes, sir. We actually have a wood stove in our house, so I cut firewood for that. So the plan is all that to become firewood, or some of it. I also have buddies who want firewood that have come out and picked up scrap wood that it's already cut thin, so they're able to just cut it to length to fit it right in, and they don't have to split it at all.
You have a plan for
Yes,
disposal?
sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So as we move into this next section, I want to just make sure that everyone understands, because I don't know how many of you are planning on speaking in for or against. But as we go into the next section, anyone wishing to speak in favor, you have 10 minutes collectively, okay? So one person, if two people want to speak, one person can't speak for the entire 10 minutes. You can come up together, you can speak separately, it doesn't matter how we do that, but we're going to swear you in as you come in. So the next section would be anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application. If you need to do that, please come up to the podium.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address.
Jim Pierce, 1920 West Mount Zion Road, Crestwood, Kentucky.
All right, Jim, go
Own
ahead.
and operate the farm, which is adjacent to Mount Zion Estates. Mount Zion Estates is to my east. And I've been there since 1941. So I've been there and seen the county develop. I'd like to go back and simply say that when Mount Zion Estates was developed in the early 70s, it was developed in primarily lots of 3 to 6 to 7 acres. I don't know the exact plots of it and everything. And it was the dream of virtually everybody in, I think, Oldham County, that people, especially migrating from Jefferson County, and especially when busing came along, that they could have 3 to 5 acres, enjoy the open air, enjoy the sunshine, and have a little thing of raising a few chickens, selling eggs, maybe a few rabbits and selling rabbits, having a horse and this type of thing, and maybe a backyard mechanic type of thing. So from this standpoint, I think it fits into the type of thing that was prevalent when this subdivision was developed, to say people can have the open air, the freedom, and do this type of thing. As far as the type of thing that Mr. Joey is proposing, I really don't think it's a problem, since I own the farm next to them. I'm the guy that bales the hay. I'm the guy that's running the 100 horsepower tractor diesel that makes the noise and so forth, and I run when I have to run. So from that standpoint, I don't think he's going to make any more noise than I do. I happen to own a 31 horsepower diesel zero-turn mower. I'll guarantee you it makes more noise than he's going to make. So from that standpoint, I think it fits in with the community. I would also like to say that this is a young couple who's come to Oldham County, and here's a man who has some spare time from his job and so forth, trying to run a legitimate business. I've been over there 3 times to help him set up with his tractors and things, help him give a little bit of knowledge, and also move his sawmill. I've also delivered hay to them and this sort of thing. And here's a young couple who is benefiting the community. His wife lets children of need and so forth come ride her horses. I'm proud to say that I'm glad to have him as a neighbor. And I'd hate to see this thing turned down for something that, here's a thing that when you look at his business plan of the way he brings the logs in, I've been there, I actually helped him move his mill off the yard because it didn't have an axle under it. We had to raise it up and get it back on there. But anyway, he will be able to do this, occupy his time, and provide some good things. I've seen his work. He does quality work, cutting slabs for mantels, tables, etc. And I just see this as something that will fit the community and not be a burden to the community. And I'll just say this as a little side note. I probably scattered more mud up and down their road delivering road bales with four-wheel drive tractor that could cause complaint than Joy is going to create with his sawmill. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Who else we can speak in favor?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address.
My name is Ron Morris. I'm his temporary landlord, I think. I'm at 7014 Hughes Avenue in Crestwood. He's moved his sawmill in, he's used it a few times. Wanted to address the question of the noise. The Honda is one of the quietest engines for that type of use for generators and so on. So we have a patio outside of our office where our office staff and where our neighbors convene when we're on the patio having coffee or whatever and the machine is running. It's barely noticeable. It's 150 feet away with a 50-foot building in between. And once he moves that engine system inside, I don't think anybody is going to notice it. So just good comment.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
What's your name and address?
I'm Jean Jenkins, 1911 Creekview Court, Crestwood, Kentucky. I'm on here, it's 1908. On certain things, it says 1908. On our deed, it says 1911.
Okay.
So I'm the adjoining property owner. I have no problem with him having the business there. He started out with a chainsaw, one of the really long, big chainsaws that could cut a 3-foot slab. It's a lot louder than the sawmill. It's going to be more quiet. They are a young couple starting out, trying to improve their property. They need the funds to do so. And this is a money-making thing as well as, an aesthetic thing. So, and he's going to use the shavings for their horses. I think they'll go through it pretty fast. I don't know that they'll have much to give away. So, and I don't see any nuisance or anything with any deliveries. Or the truck that comes with the logs stays on their driveway. It's short enough for that. There's no problem with it in that relationship.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Tom Evans, 7815 Nita Way. I am catty corner there right across the street from them. I'm the primary cause of noise and street traffic in our neighborhood. I have 4 kids. They're riding their bikes through the street all the time. If anybody had any concern about a big truck coming through there, delivering back and forth, or people picking up, it would be me, because my kids are the ones right around this circle you see at the top of the screen. I've seen the truck come through there. I have no concerns. I'm more worried about Amazon and UPS, to be honest with you, than I am that truck when it came through, or any of the customers that I've seen come through. My property is about 100 yards, well, not 100 yards, probably 100 feet from where the sawmill originally was. I never even noticed he was running it. Noise is not an issue. You go out my back door, you hear gunshots over here, chainsaws over here, lawnmowers over there. That's the natural sound of what we hear when we go outside. This is nothing outside of what I've normally heard, and I have absolutely no objections to anything. So thank you.
Thank you. We're still in the time of 4, speaking for the application.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Name
Name
and
and
address.
All right. I'm Daniel McCaslin. I live at 7810 Nita Way. I am 2 houses across from his property. Was unaware that he was running a sawmill, so that tells you right there, I have never heard it, and I'm probably 100 yards from his sawmill. I have no problem with it. I've seen the trucks come in and out. Really didn't even notice them, to be honest. I just wanted to state that, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? All right, seeing none, or anybody, we would now, ma'am, do you wish to speak in favor?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address.
My name's Donna Belanger, and we're presently parked in an RV in Mr. Morris's parking lot. And though I don't really know Joey very well, but I hear I'm in a motorhome, it's really very quiet compared to what I hear going across the road where they have the lawnmowers going. So we don't have any problem either hearing him.
Ma'am, can I
So,
get your address, please? What's your address?
It's 5753 Highway 85 North, Crestview, Florida. I can't remember my zip code because we're in the motorhome.
Thank you.
All right. Very good, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? All right, seeing none, we'll now move on to, wait, I should say, is there any questions by the board to anyone who's just spoken in favor? All right, then we need to move on to anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Seeing none, don't need any rebuttals because we don't have any opposition. Any final statements, sir, that you'd like to make for the applicant? Okay. Board members, any questions of staff or the applicant or anyone who's spoken today? All right, seeing none, we'll now close the floor and have discussion amongst the board members.
I would just say that, given the testimony that we've heard today from the applicant, the support of the surrounding neighbors, which was my first and initial thought was a noise concern, as well as automobile or, truck traffic, the testimony we've received as to the neighbors' support, those with children, those that live nearby, I would be inclined to approve it as with the testimony and the application as submitted.
I think one of the things that I find most positive is that there was someone who initially objected, talked to his neighbors, and worked it out. That's someone who you want to be your neighbor who's going to figure out how to take care of what you need to take care of. I think with approval, we would need to put conditions on approval if that was the route we were to go, and I would be in favor of it. I frankly think that the 10-log limit is probably I'm trying to think of the worst case scenario. We have a snowstorm. You can't get in and out. You can't do stuff like that. Maybe we should make it more than 10 logs, but that's my opinion. I think we do need to put in hours, like stated on here, about when pickups would take place, and there was only one limit of one customer at a time on the property. That would be my concerns. And then milling between 9 and 5. Again, I don't care if it's weekdays, weekends. He works there. It doesn't matter to me, but between 9 and 5 seems reasonable for 7 days a week. And he's already answered my questions in terms of burning and those kind of things, which were my concern coming in. Other than the noise, what do we do? The fact that he runs he has a wood-burning stove, and he has a method of getting rid of anything excess. There was the parts that I wanted to hear about as well. Mr. Riley?
I'm looking at section 260-230, home occupations. And I just want to make sure that we comply with these regulations. For instance, there's one regulation, number A1C, says no display of goods, products, or services shall be visible from outside the dwelling.
Okay? So you're suggesting?
Outside the dwelling, which is the primary house.
Not the.
Yeah, a home occupation can be in a accessory structure as well. So you're talking about under general standards. What number? I was getting my book.
Number C, it's A1C.
Correct.
Okay.
So I think that he has said that he's going to store them in the covered lean-to. It's not covered on all sides, but it is under roof on the sides.
And then also it says on number 3, only handmade items, foodstuffs, crafts made in the home, and sale items in conjunction with the services may be offered for sale on the premises.
Other goods, products,
On page 95. I just want to make sure that this is in the book, that we follow the guidelines of
So your
Procedure.
number, you said 3C?
3A.
3A, only handmade items, foodstuff, craft made in home, and sale items, conjunctions with the services may be offered for sale on the premises.
Yeah.
So that's what he's doing. He is creating either the mantles or lumber or whatever on site.
Correct.
So whatever he's creating on site is what he's allowed to sell on site.
Versus ordering goods and items from China and reselling them.
Correct, yes,
That's what
sir.
they're trying to
Yes,
prohibit.
sir. Uh-huh, absolutely.
Got it. Okay?
And he did testify that he would not have additional employees, but under the standards, he is allowed to have one employee other than members of the family, shall be permitted given one additional
Right.
off-street parking space is provided. But he did testify that he would not have any employees. So if you want to put that as a condition of approval, you can, based off his testimony, or you can leave it as it stands, as allowed to have one if things change in the future.
We have the floor closed.
Okay, are we ready?
I think the only question I had was again about, I like the customers one at a time in terms of qualifications. I think we should have, as Mike, pretty much, it's what he's listed here, is that one customer at a time, that he would mill between 9 and 5. I don't care about weekdays, weekends.
Well, you need this, you need to put what is in his plan. You can't modify what he has testified to. So we need to keep in the parameters of what their plan is. We can't,
He's requesting certain conditions and agreeing to them. I think when you start expanding those conditions, you're getting outside what has been presented and what the testimony is. I don't care whether it's hours of operation or number of employees or whatever. I think it's a slippery slope when you start going, well, let's just make it this instead of what was being requested and what you heard testimony. Everybody in support has heard what he said, and
Based
then
off of this plan.
you've closed the public comment. And then when you start expanding, what if you get to a case where all of a sudden, I don't agree with you guys expanding that? You're really getting into something that's way, way, way beyond what I think you should be doing, in my opinion.
I have no strong feeling one way or the other.
So what you're saying is that on the conditions of approval, this is it?
yes, sir.
So if we stay, if,
Plus, you heard testimony that he won't have any employees, there'll be no additional
I think that's.
lighting other than security lighting, and that he would limit it to 10 logs at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are not in.
Those are the additional conditions you can put on it, and it, plus the conditions of the plan.
So it would be the business plan, as well as no more than 10 logs,
okay,
no additional employees, no additional
Lighting other than security.
other outside lighting other than security lighting.
I don't even think they discussed signage, but that's probably
Yeah,
okay.
and that's outlined in the home occupation that they can't have signage, so he would have to follow that section. What was the other one,
So
Jim?
no signage, correct?
No, you don't, that's already part of the regulation.
Gotcha.
Because the business plan outlines one customer, the hours of operation.
You can just
And
state
the
the
number of
business plan
drop-offs.
outline as presented in the testimony.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
as adjusted, because on there it says Saturday, 12 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Well, just that
That needs to
correction.
be corrected.
That's a typo,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was a typo.
We don't want to be coming in at
As
1 in the
adjusted.
morning.
Got it. Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, if not, be willing to accept a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve docket number OC 19023, requesting a requesting a conditional use permit for home occupation for a sawmill and woodworking on property located 1906 Creekview Court, Crestwood. Based upon the testimony, also based on the testimony of several neighbors, and also on the testimony of the applicant. The setting, also to justify this motion, the setting for this application is in character with the surrounding area. It will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Conditions of approval. Conditions of approval will be the C&W Sawmill Working Company business plan as stated, as changed on the hours of operation to Saturday from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. There will be no employees. Maximum number of logs on site will be 10. There will be no additional lighting. Only lighting will be for security purposes. Anything else? That is my motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second? All in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion pass.
I think they want to undo the table, so.
At the break, Jim spoke to me and said that when the prior case that we tabled, that he requested that we untable it, so.
The applicant has requested that you hear his alternate at today rather than waiting till next month.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I'm inclined to do so. So I would be willing to accept a motion to untable docket OC-19-015.
I'd like to make a motion to untable docket 19 OC 19015.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have now reopened OC-19-015. Procedurally here, we don't want to go back through the entire case, so I think what we're doing at this point is hearing what the applicant has proposed, and then we'll figure out how to move forward from there.
Right.
All right? Sir, if you
Right.
could come forward.
After looking at my drawings and stuff,
I'm sorry, say again?
well, after looking at my drawings and what y'all have,
Okay.
I'm requesting if I did slide the building another 10 foot off of Lincoln Trail, which would be basic parallel with the side of the house and the new building, would that be enough to get this passed?
I don't know if you can answer it in that respect, but he's proposing to modify his current plan by an additional 10 feet back from the road, whatever, Lincoln.
Lincoln Trail.
And at this point.
That would, sorry.
he's made that modification of his original proposal, and at this point, it's back in your all's lap for discussion.
All right, so what you're stating is.
You can ask questions of him based on his statement, he's willing to move it 10 feet. Or if you all are satisfied, you all can go into just general discussion of the motion and, of the modification.
So the variance then, just to be clear about what we're suggesting, the requested variance was 40 feet. Now we're saying it would be 30 feet, correct?
Correct.
Now, would this mean the entirety of the building? Tom, I'm asking you. Tom, does this mean it still resides in its entirety in the setback? Or, because based on the drawing that's on the screen, I'm not clear.
So at this point in time, with this drawing shown, it shows it completely 100% within the setback.
Right.
If you were to bring it back 8 feet, bring it back flush with the building line.
So it would still be in its entirety.
Oh, I'm sorry. You would bring it 8 feet back.
10 feet back.
10. You'd bring it 10 feet back, and you would be flush with that.
So we'd put it still entirely within the limits, or within the setback, but farther away from the road.
Yes.
Okay.
Which would give you 10 more foot in the area in case utilities would have to go through.
Is that 10 feet from?
Yeah. From the corner of the house.
No, I'm talking about they're going this way.
I gotta say,
going this way,
I've
the
ripped
10
my
foot.
sheet apart, so I don't have that.
So it looks like there's 10 feet to the setback line according to, so it would still all be in that front yard setback, but at least on that edge of the setback. Is that correct? This dimension here is 10 feet.
Yeah, it's 10, that's kind of, yeah, it's 10 foot from the left-hand corner of the building to the corner of the house.
Okay.
So I'm sliding it 10 feet to make it even with the building line.
It should be 20 feet. Still within the, okay.
Right, it would just add 10 more foot on the right-hand side of the building towards Lincoln Trail.
It would move it 10 feet farther away from Lincoln Trail.
Yes,
So instead of needing a 40-foot variance, it'd need a 30-foot variance. Because and the building itself is 30 feet wide.
32 foot wide. Yes.
It's still all in front of the setback, so it's 50-foot.
Yeah.
It's still getting inside that, it's not changing the dimension really. The setback line, if this were an accurate drawing, is 50 feet. All of the building is inside that.
Still inside that.
Still a 50-foot variance. No.
I'm looking at the sheet, which here said it was a 40-foot requested variance, is what I'm saying. So what we're saying is these numbers are wrong?
32-foot barn and an 8-foot.
So what it has is a 50-foot what it has a 50-foot setback. We'd be asking for, if the building is 32 feet wide and spreads up to it, we were looking for a 32-foot variance. And that's where you were going with the 8 feet.
Yes.
See what I mean? I'm trying to understand the math. I want to know what we're talking
Shift
about.
it back, yeah, if you shift it back 8 feet, then we'd be 32-foot variance instead of a 40-foot variance.
Because he's talking about moving the edge of it, even with the side of the house, which would put it right on the edge of the setback.
Yeah, well, that line right there.
Yep.
So it'd be 32 feet instead of 40.
Okay, it's because the building is a certain width. That's what I was missing. The
Okay.
building has a dimension, and that is
32 feet.
32 feet.
So it's a 32-foot variance. Okay. All right, I just trying to clarify so we're all on the same page of what we're talking about. Okay. So, gentlemen, Tate, I'm not sure, we're kind of in a discussion / question / weird place here. So if procedurally we need to do something, I'm all ears. So.
Kind of asking questions, close the public discussion.
So So any questions of the applicant? All right, thanks, sir. All right, so now we would close the floor for, or any other questions of staff? Nope. Staff comments? Nope. All right,
Okay.
something else, Tate?
No, I just want to make sure everybody understands what's being moved here, whether the whole building is going that way or just one piece of the building is going that way, because it's kind of confusing the way the width of the building, that building, the whole building is coming back 10 feet, not just
Okay.
8 feet of it. The whole building's coming back 10 feet, right? I get a little confused when you go 8 feet and 30.
I think the prior numbers were wrong. What we're talking about as proposed is that it would be, the edge of the building would be on the property line. The building is 32 feet wide, so we'd be looking at a 32-foot variance as adjusted currently. Are we all on the same page? All right, all right. So
Okay.
Wait, total, can I talk to you?
we haven't closed the floor. I have not closed the floor, so if,
Don't get them confused. We want it clear as to what's being done and what's being proposed and what he's
Correct.
agreeing to do.
correct,
It's essentially encroaching 32 feet into the front yard setback,
correct.
because that's the building width.
Yes, it's the building width, the entire building width, but it's, that one side will be on the edge of the property line, but the entire building would be 32 feet. Encroaching. Agreed.
That's right.
All right, very good. Again, we can't go back to the prior numbers because I think those are actually were wrong. All right, so we're going to close the floor. I'm going to close the floor for additional testimony and open it up for discussion among the board members. So the question before us now is, does that change what we're thinking?
You're still within that setback.
It's better. There's no doubt. Better is, it is definitely better. The question for
And
me
the, and
is
the variance will be how much? The variance?
32 feet.
I thought you said
32. It's 32.
30
We're-
feet.
well, 32.
Setbacks are set for a certain reason, and we allow encroachments from time to time
Right.
for legitimate reasons. But to allow a building to be built entirely in the setback area, I don't see how we could do that.
Go ahead.
I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I hear and understand what the applicants are attempting to achieve. But we just went through several conversations today on the docket, and one was up and down because we were asking for like a 9-foot penetration into that space. I struggle with this, and I'm not sure if I've made my mind up wholeheartedly. I'm leaning probably more towards the no in light of the fact that the entire structure still remains beyond the building limit. And I struggle with it, and I commend the applicant's consideration to table it and reconsider it and take time to think about it. I struggle with this, and it's not just because it could maybe be on sewers or just because this or just because that. Just when I look at the whole big picture, I'm having a difficult time wanting to find a reason to approve this because I don't even have a foot of this building back behind where it should be. And I'm having difficulty with that. From the applicant's perspective, the gentleman bought a piece of property, he drives through a neighborhood, he sees other outbuildings placed, he has no knowledge of rules and regulations, but the burden of making a decision lies on us today, whether this building should be approved or not what the applicant had viewed riding through the neighborhood or the county. And I'm having a difficult time.
I have to state that while this is, again, better, it's whether or not it's good enough, okay? And so for me, when I look at it, I say, I think while there is definitely a fall off on the property, I don't know that it's not extensive enough that we couldn't maybe turn the building and push it back into the more of the backyard so that you could, I understand there's a elevation change up to the driveway. I'm sorry that exists, but I don't think it's not that it's not going to spend, it would spend additional monies, but I'm not sure how much more additional as opposed to all the driveway that you would be placing to get it back to where it's proposed as is. I don't know that there's that much of a difference. And so for me, to me, is there a viable alternative that would be less encroachment? I believe that there is an option. This is my opinion, based on the testimony that's before us, that the building could be turned and slid back onto the property and maybe encroach into it to a degree, but not 32 feet. So for me, whether it's encroaching what we proposed or the 32 feet now, I'm sorry, 32 feet is too far for me. And I think back to some of what we would do, could do, should do. And you could talk about precedent setting or whether or not, and I know each case stands on its own, but I have a hard time even looking at this isolated and saying put in the entirety of a structure within the setback. I can't anticipate what's going to happen in the future. There's a setback rule put there on purpose. I applaud that he's done the homework to find out if other people would say that's okay based on what's currently going in there. That's better prepared than most come before us. I also applaud the fact that he's trying to do something rather than just park a trailer out. He's trying to accomplish where he does something, and I think he's done it tastefully. I just cannot see myself approving this as is. So I think as we stand, sounds like we have 3 that are still against it. I think you previously stated you were probably going to be for it. So it sounds like to me we're at the same place that we were. And the question is, do we move forward and deny, which is if going based on what we heard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to make a motion yet.
Okay.
But I think we ought to give him the opportunity
Lump-
to go back and table this thing.
That-
Yeah.
Right, and that's
He
my,
can
that
go
was my
back.
second point. We could either first is we could either move forward with a motion, or we could table if any of the comments made causes the applicant to consider a further consideration.
I'm curious as to where it's written, if it's written, if in the event that the applicant's request were to be denied, does that shut down his option for being able to come back and resubmit another plan, or does it lock the door on him to do anything for a specified period of time, or how would that work if in the event that we were to vote on it now, and if in the event that it were to be denied?
If this application were denied, his next application, which would be the normal process of advertising and fee and everything else, would have to be significantly different than the one that's denied. So he couldn't come back with the exact same plan, but he'd have to consider another location.
But he has to wait 12 months before it's submitted
No.
or anything to that effect?
No,
Okay.
if it's different, it can be submitted.
So I guess the question is it tabled so an alternate plan, or move forward with a motion? And I guess I'm trying to, Mr. Tate, we closed the floor, now I'm trying to ask a question, so I have to reopen the floor?
If it's been, well, no, at this point, you're in discussions and you're capable of either tabling it or making a motion to table, because you've reopened the floor, you've gone through your discussions, and if you don't like what you got, you can table it. And basically, that's really the choice of the applicant, who may want it voted on, and may not want it tabled, may not want to go through the process again. That's his choice. He might want to come back with an engineer,
Yeah.
Something of that nature. So it says, this isn't possible because of the terrain or whatever. But he needs to take advantage of that.
I think the applicant is interested in having this docket tabled.
That's where we are, and make a motion to table. We can do it, you can set it for the next meeting, but you can even.
I think we just table it, yeah.
Just table it.
Yep.
Put it back on.
Ready?
I would be inclined to accept a motion to table.
I'd like to make a motion to table docket OC 19015 to a future hearing of the Board of Adjustments.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are through all the cases. Now we need to move on to the minutes. I noted in the minutes that the names listed at the top were wrong. That's it, 50 lashes with a wet noodle. So at the top, it stated David Pate. Yeah, there's that cut and paste function, huh?
I know. I don't know how that happened, I'm sorry.
All right,
Pace,
so
huh?
David Pate should be replaced with Tom Clemens. Okay? So I propose that adjustment. What is any other changes to the minutes? All right?
Yep.
If there's no other adjustments, I need a motion to approve the minutes as adjusted.
I make a motion that we move to approve the minutes with the adjustment of David Pate being removed and Tom Clemens' name being added as to who were present during last month's meeting. The minutes are dated Thursday, June 20th, 2019.
I have a motion to approve the minutes as adjusted. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Other new business?
No new business, just depending on if the applicant comes forward with a revised plan, you will have a meeting next month.
At this moment, there is nothing at...
At this moment, we have not received anything, but we have almost 2 weeks left, because the filing deadline is like the last day of the month, this month. So we have almost 2 weeks to get applications, so. But as always, I'll send an email out and let you know whether or not, we have meetings. That's
Okay.
it.
Any other business? All right. If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Mic's off.